So like, yeah, I think that the self-awareness is just you do have to listen to people sometimes,
Yeah.
and really reflect on your own actions. I think it's massive. It's massive. Like, to take the effort to actually sit down and be like, why did I respond that way? As ashamed or as embarrassing as it may be, like, why did I say that? Like, why did I do? And why? It's, I think for me, like, I don't know if I'm changing topics here, but like around the self awareness thing, it's like there are times that I'll be ashamed of thinking something, even if I haven't voiced it out loud. Like, it's not, I don't walk away from a conversation and be like, oh no, I said this, and I'm gonna cringe about it for 3 weeks. It's like, no, like, I walk away thinking, why was the first reaction in my head something that negative? Even though I didn't say it out loud, but it's like,
Yeah.
why did I think that about this person?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, where is it? Where did that come from? Like, what is it? Did they, were they being really friendly to me, but I immediately just didn't like them because they remind me of some bitch in the, grade 3
Yeah.
that like said something or looked at me funny? Like,
Your
it's like
triggers.
my triggers. And I'm just like, you have to own that. Like, I have to own it because you don't stop them from happening. They'll never stop happening.
No.
It's like it's a reflex, and it's going to come out. And like, there's so many friends in my life now that I'm like, I couldn't fucking stand you when I met you. I hated you. I hated the look of you. You breathed funny, and I was like, I want to slap her.
Yeah.
And then you become really good friends and whatever. And it's like, but what was it about this person that my immediate dislike just consumed my mind? Like, why was it? And like, you really have to think, because I know those triggers are going to come, but it's the idea of like, what am I going to do
about
with it? Like,
Yeah.
like, I really have to think about why I felt this way, rather than like try to stop them happening, because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like,
100%.
like, it's just going to happen,
But that's mindfulness 101, really.
which is so hard to practice though, right? Like,
Yeah, because I don't think, but again, you're not shown this sort of stuff because we are told that we are us from day one, right? That we are defined by this individuality of our thoughts and ideas and these sorts of things. And then, we get defined by what society defines as a good thought or a bad thought, or what you should do and you shouldn't do, as opposed to individuating who you are and why you think these ways. And a lot of two-thirds of your brain are subconscious. So how much of your actual self do you really know? And, again, I think trauma is understanding trauma is one of the most transformational perspectives that anyone can have. You go from what's wrong with you to what happened to you. And that's the thing I was talking to you before about, Dr. Gabor Mate, about, The Wisdom of Trauma. That's the name of the movie. I've talked about it before in the pod. Great movie. Because you understand that all of these triggers and reactions have come from our fertile young minds being put in positions of emotional and physical insecurity and needs not being met, but also not being addressed by the environment to soothe or to manage that. And those wounds are the painful memories that keep coming up, and those ghosts and those whispers in the back of your head that tell you can't or you shouldn't do this or stay away. But nobody tells us about those things.
no.
They manifest themselves in addictions and these psychological urges to soothe pain, this pain inside.
Yep.
It's why I think so many people who live the 9 to 5 rat race live for the weekend, because they're in perpetual states of discomfort, mentally, physically, about what they think they should be doing, where they are in their lives, that they still think it's perfectly fine to get blackout drunk every weekend. And you're like, don't you notice?
It's so hard. And I think, because like, obviously, yes, in like the line of work that I do, it's like, like, we're so highly trained in that, because it's, it's trauma informed practice, it's trauma informed care. Like, when, we are working with someone, like, we're not walking away from a client going, oh God, I can't stand her, all she does is yell at me. It's like,
Yeah.
why is she so aggressive? Because like, when you've got like, you've got all the different types of trauma, and you've got all the different responses, like, like, you use the most basic one of like, oh, a tiger's coming towards you. Like, do you is it fight
or
or
flight.
flight,
Yeah.
or freeze, right?
Yeah.
But then like, when we're seeing it in our everyday situations, it's like, I'll meet someone, and like, you see, there's so much trauma. Like, I'm just going to use the comedy scene because, we know most of the people, right? But it's like, you see these behaviors coming out, and it's like, those people that are particularly aggressive or like irritated, or like they don't always like the comfortable person to be around. It's like, okay, yep, you're a fight, and then it's like the next person, it's like,
Yeah.
why are you so numb and withdrawn? Okay, there's a freeze. And then like you've got like the flight, which is like, no, I'm in complete avoidance, complete denial, nothing's ever happened to me, I'm incredibly healthy. It's like, you are not healthy.
Yeah.
That is a flight response. It's like, so you can sort of
Oh,
pick it
you
out, like
can't
you see
unsee
it.
it.
You can't. And the thing is, like, I think when we're so highly trained to see it, it's like it's such a big part of how I, it's like if I meet men, like we're having a conversation, I'm like, he's so damaged. I'm like, I can't be
Yeah.
here. Like,
Yeah.
like you can tell just from like a very, very simple conversation most of the time. And I'm not saying I know everything. I'm sure I get it wrong.
Yeah.
But most of the time I'm right. But like you can just become so used to it. I think like a recent example of that is and I'm not going to give much detail, but there's someone who's like incredibly lovely, like a bit of a bizarre unit, a little bit strange, but obviously reaching out for connection. And there are people around me who have just been like, nah, they're fucked, they're weird, they're this, like they did that. And I'm like, but what they did was a nice thing. Why are you not questioning why this person is reaching for connection rather than like making fun of them for something that they thought was a nice thing that you're now laughing at? Like, it was like such a mean girl act to me that I was just
Yeah.
like, why are you doing that? Like, why are you saying this about this person? When I'm like, why don't we look at what's happened to them? Because clearly this person has a story. Something has gone terribly wrong, probably a number of times. Like, I'm assuming
Yeah.
this is like complex trauma, not just like one acute fucking, incident. And it's like, it actually drives me insane knowing or having that like next level of like, no, let's not look at this as black and white. Like let's look at what's actually going on. You
Yeah.
know? And it's funny because it's a very trauma response to look at something as black and white. Do you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. To deal in absolutes. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's like, hold on, like there is so much gray area here. It's like, why don't you give this person the time of day? Which is probably another reason I'm burnt out, because I take the time. It's exhausting, but it's like,
Yeah.
I would love to be black and white sometimes and be like, not my issue. You're an asshole. I want nothing to do with you. Like, whereas a lot of the time I'm like, oh yeah, they're fucked. I wonder what happened. Like,
Yeah, you want to look at the car crash a little bit longer.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's not always that I want to. I just feel like, we're all human beings. Compassion and empathy go a long way. And a lot of people say they got empathy. No, you fucking don't.
No.
You don't. You have no idea. That's not empathy. Like, it's just, being a nice person is not empathy.
No.
Being a good person is empathy. So